Hi, everybody, in all of our different rooms. Again, I'm Jennifer Irish, Director of the Information Integrity Lab at the University of Ottawa, and we're continuing the Climate Disinformation Summit. And we're in session 3 of the Solutions Fair part of our summit, where we're looking at practical tools, techniques, and approaches for dealing with information distortion that affects public perceptions on climate change. So this session is going to be dealing with monitoring, detection, and responding to mis and disinformation. In our earlier sessions, we looked at how we build more trustworthy information environments through literacy, narratives, civic design, and inclusive communication. In this session, we're focusing on how we can monitor and respond to misleading or harmful narratives as they emerge. We'll hear about tools and frameworks that are guiding researchers, journalists, and civil society actors identify and track mis and disinformation, and also AI-enabled detection systems to look at how we map online discourse and how we do structured responses as well. We'll follow the same format as we did for the last session. So I will introduce each presenter, and then we'll just do a couple of questions around each one, and hopefully have some time at the end to look at some cross-cutting challenges. So we're going to start with Philippe Ma, who's the senior researcher and co-director of the Social Media Lab at Toronto Metropolitan University.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. So today, I'm going to be talking about an app that we've developed at the lab to help make political ads more transparent. This is, I'm referring to paid political ads, the kind that you see on Facebook, on Instagram when you go online. And some of you might be wondering, but it's paid ads. Don't they know who the advertisers are? Why would that be a problem? So I'm going to tell you. So what's the problem with paid targeted advertising, and how can they be misused? So they can be used to run scam ads. So for example, we use our dashboard to discover this particular scam ad last. So as I was saying, one of the ways you can use paid ads is to run scam ads. We used our app last year to discover this scammer who's running ads featuring President Biden. They use AI to dub his voice, and they're telling people, hey, go and apply for this new benefit. Remember the $2,000 check that you got during COVID? This is something similar. Sign up now. And if you click on to learn more, it takes you to a chatbot. And the chatbot is designed to tease out and figure out what is that you're looking for, what is that you need. Because what they're trying to do is harvest your information so that they can sell it to people who might be selling insurance, who might be selling other things. Based upon how you answer the chatbot, they can then filter you and put you into different lists, and then they sell those lists to scammers in the US. Okay. Another way is you can use it to suppress voter turnout. So here's another example. This advertiser called Hard Assets Hero, they were running ads that says, was the 2024 presidential election just postponed? Does Kamala plan to postpone the election? But when you look at the data to figure out where they're targeting these ads, look at the 3 states in the US, California, Texas, Florida. What do they all have in common? Those 3 states have the highest number of people over 65. So the goal was to convince some of those people on Tuesday to stay home and not go and vote, right? So that's how you use targeted advertising. You don't have to do something really outrageous. You just want to plant ideas and seed to make people do something that you might not want them to do. So here's another example here in Canada. In this past election in April, we found an advertiser who ran 2 Facebook pages. One is called What's Interesting Vaughan, and the other one that they ran is Vaughan Democrats. But we couldn't understand why a page, What's Interesting Vaughan, was liking things from Rebel News and Proud Canada, was paying for ads that support supposedly Vaughan Democrats and the NDP. So we started doing some Googling, and we figured out that the person who was behind this was somebody who used to be the president of the riding for the Conservative Party. And he was independently setting up this page, running ads to support the local NDP candidate, because in that riding, the liberals and the conservatives were quite close. So the goal was to, we think, maybe to convince some people to vote for the NDP, to basically spoil the vote. And getting back to this particular conference, you can also see examples of how people are using paid ads to plant seeds of doubt. So an advertiser in the UK, the Epoch Times London, last year they were spending millions of dollars during the first half of the year running these ads, basically questioning climate science, climate change, just planting, again, the seed of doubt. Here's another example of their ads. Again, trying to say that, you know, the experts are always changing their mind. They don't know what they're talking about. So since they're always changing their mind and they don't know what they're talking about, maybe you shouldn't trust anything they're saying at all. So again, the idea is not to convince everybody to believe this. It's just to convince a small portion to believe this, and basically they won. Okay, so that's how you can use paid ads to manipulate things and change people's thinking and stop them from doing what they might otherwise want to do. So before I go on further, I want to take a few minutes just to introduce ourselves. And some of you might have heard of our lab. We've been around for about 10, 15 years now in Canada. And just so that you understand where we're coming from and the work that we do. So as a research lab, we do typical things that you expect of an academic research lab. We do research on social media and how it affects and impacts our society. We train a lot of students on different analytical methods and how to use and derive insight from the data that we have. And we organize events. And the thing that many of you might be interested in is on the tools that we develop in the lab. The lab is run by myself and Anatoly. Over the years, we focus on a wide variety of things. We look at things like academia, analytics, health, and of course, misinformation. Like, for example, last year, we looked at who's acceptable to being influenced by Russian misinformation and disinformation talking points. And as you can see, those who believe in pro-Kremlin claims are more likely to rely on social media for news. That's probably not surprising for many of you here in the room. We also run experiment online to find out whether some of the tools and interventions that the platforms are using, like blur screens and footnotes, do they work? There was a big discussion yesterday during one of the sessions about the value of fact-checking. This study and many others like this shows that there is value in fact-checking. It's not a cure-all, but it should be one of the quiver in our bowl. In our one of the arrows in our quiver for this, because we show that when the labels are there and the blur screens are there, people do reduce the chances that they will click and share, because they don't want to be the one that share information that is facially incorrect to their friends and network if they know that it is incorrect. And then the other thing that we do is we produce a lot of public reports over the last decade, looking at how Canadians are spending time on social media. The most recent one is on the use of generative AI. A lot of Canadians are trying this out. So if you're interested, go online. But the tools that I think most of you might be interested in this room is our flagship tool, which is Communalytic. With this tool, you can get data from Blue Sky, Mastodon, Reddit, Telegram, and X if you're willing to pay Elon for the data. But once you pay him, you can then use the API from X to then collect the data that you need. Or if you have an existing data set, you can import it into the program. And once you do, you can do civility analysis, sentiment analysis, topic analysis, and so on. And we also develop a lot of dashboard to track things like deepfakes. So if you're looking for the latest example of deepfakes in the wild, that's there. So for Poly Dashboard. So it's an app, like I said, for discovering that is another app for tracking community notes. Earlier, there was a discussion on how valuable and useful community notes is. This one shows that only 11% of all community notes are ever made visible, which means that 89% of community notes never see daylight. So I question the value of community notes. I think, again, it's an arrow in the quiver, but it's not a cure-all. Okay, targeted ads. It's a huge industry. In the US election alone last year, $1.9 billion was just spent on digital ad. That does not even include TVs, radios, and newspaper. Just digital is $1.9 billion. So it's growing. How does it work? The advertiser, they choose a business goal. They identify the desired audience, and then Facebook basically deliver that basket of eyeballs to that advertiser, right? But why does it matter? It matters because we're still spending time there. We might not be spending as much time, but we're still there. And how do we know that? Like I said, we do surveys every 2 years to say, hi, where are Canadians spending time online? They're still spending time on Facebook, because that's where you know when the next barbecue is. That's when you know when the next birthday is, and what's going on in your neighborhood. People are still there. They may not use it as much as they used to, but they're still there. So the tool that we developed, the original idea was to bring transparency and to paid ads, because it's quite opaque. You see one ad, but you don't know what your friends and neighbors are seeing. What we were interested in is, what is a particular advertiser? What are they doing online? What is their overall aims and goals? Who are they targeting? And it's mostly designed for media, citizens, and academia, election officials. So for example, The Guardian uses this, the AFP, and also use our tools to keep track of different advertisers in the different countries that we have data for. And how do we get it? We get it from the ad library. Under the EU Digital Service Act, they're required to put out this type of data. But what they do is they give you everything you want to know about one particular ad. But I don't care about what's happening in that one ad. I want to know what's happening with that one advertiser. What have they done over the last 6 months, 9 months, a year? How their messaging changed? Who they targeted? Are they targeting men and women in a particular province more than another province? That's interesting stuff to know. I'm going to skip some of that. So we have data right now for over 10 million ads in the dashboard from 38 countries. By the end of this coming year, early next year, we'll add another 25 countries to the app. And once you click on any of the countries, you get a list of all the advertisers based on their spending, based on their demographics. So you can now see, like, for example, if you click on the app right now, the biggest advertiser this week is Pathway Alliance, right? One of the big oil consortium in Canada. They're the biggest buyers of ads this week. And if you look at the other two in the top 10, Canada Action, Canada Fuel Association, again, more oil industry people spending money online. If it's not working, they wouldn't be spending the money. It must be working. Okay, so we also break it down by location. So now you know, like, which province are they reaching? Where are the eyeballs that sees their ad come from? Okay, so we tease that out and show that to you in almost real time. So because the data is usually about no more than 48 hours old. And we recently added a new feature, semantic search. So let's say you want to look up something, let's say, related to climate change, CO2, or is good, or whatever. We will let you find and surface no-name advertiser that you might have never heard of, who are using language that is related to the search term that you, because that's how many of them hide. They set up these generic names, make Canada great again. Okay, what is it? How? So, but instead of looking at their name, because you might not know their name to look them up, you look at what they actually are trying to sell. And we use semantic search, so you don't have to even know the keyword. You have to know just the keyword of the things that you are interested in. And then you say, okay, who else right now in Canada is pushing and trying to sell you that message? And then we will surface any and all advertising. We tell you how semantically similar it is to the keyword that you're searching for. Once you click on any of the advertisers, we then give you information about the number of advertising that they have for that period, how much they're spending, the number of impressions, and then we tell you how many Facebook pages they own. A lot of scam advertisers will set up 5, 6, 7 Facebook pages trying to target different audience. So you might not be aware that they are running 3, 4, 5 Facebook pages. Our app will surface that. That's why I call this presentation Making the Invisible Visible. And then we give you, some basic stats about that, and then we summarize and give you a summary of all of their ad content. And then we recently added the ability to click an AI button that says, summarize all of their ads over the last year and tell me what they're pushing. So as you can see, this advertiser emphasized the importance of individual action. This is the Liberal Party, for example. And you can validate the AI summary by looking at the content of the word cloud. So you don't have to take the AI word for it, because the word cloud will tell you. And there's only 2 more, then I'm done. We also keep track of all the advertising copy, because what they do is A/B testing, right? So they run different messages. We will now surface things that they know that have worked for them, because they ran 1,206 ads with those texts, right? So this is how you discover what they're up to. And then we also tell you which province are they spending most of their money on. So for example, in this case, they're spending on Ontario, Quebec, and BC. Why? Because that's where the largest number of voters are, right? You spend money where the eyeballs are and where the voters are for this particular advertiser. And lastly, we have a box plot that shows you which demographic group. Are they targeting men, women 18 to 24 in Quebec more than they are targeting men in Ontario? And if you click on any of the dot, it will tell you exactly, look, they're targeting people over 65, men over 65, and women over 65 in this particular case. So in closing, we have the data. If you're interested in working with us on any of these things, please reach out and contact us. But we have not just this type of data. We also, like I said, have lots and lots of other types of data that you can work with. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip. And just, are there questions or comments from the floor? Yes, please.
By the Digital Service Act in the EU, sharing the data, but they share it in a way that's not very useful. Like here in Canada, we have something called the Sunshine Act. So when the law was passed, every government would put out a list of like, hi, here's how much people are making, but they give it to you in a PDF. It's not searchable, it's not rankable, it's not grouped by employer. So now there's a whole cottage industry of people who take those PDFs and then make it searchable and then sell ads to Amazon. So we kind of did the same thing. We took the ads that Meta gives us, and then we add up all the ads ourselves for each of the advertiser.
Thank you. Maybe I'm just getting a signal that perhaps your microphone isn't.
Still on the same frequency at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
The same frequency as the other handheld.
Okay.
So we're like ceiling mic's on. Come up here, lad. Just talk to see what you can find.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, great. So the answer was that he accesses it through Facebook from the DSA provision that allows you to register as a researcher. I've heard from other labs they've had mixed experience with it, so it's interesting that yours has been positive on that.
Yeah, we've been getting very good, consistent data because we do spot check to make sure that what we are getting on our dashboard matches what is available on Meta's own library.
Another question there.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. Really fascinating stuff and really important data to have. My question is about whether you're planning to expand this to paid Google advertising. And if so, what kind of barriers do you see to doing that? Because I know the transparency with Google Ads can be quite, less transparent in some ways maybe than Meta and Instagram and that kind of thing. So
in Canada, the main problem is money. Having the money to hire developers to make this type of data dance, because we know how to work with the data. There is not a lot of research money available to make apps and tools like this. So we've been looking at the Google App data for years, and we're like, okay, how are we gonna do this? Because it's a different type of data. We got to figure out what's the best way to visualize it and to make sense of it, and what new insight can we derive from it? Because it's not just like, hi, here's some ads and we tally it up, but we want to add additional insights to it. Sorry.
Yes, please.
I only saw like a Facebook ads, but how does the Instagram advertising works? What type of different data do you get?
So we get both Facebook and Instagram. So when there's a filter feature, you see there's a filter right there. If you click that, then you can specify at the beginning, show me all ads, because by default, it shows you both Meta and Instagram. But if you're only interested in ads that appears on Instagram, then you simply say, show me only Instagram. So then it will filter it out for you ahead of time.
Thank you. So I don't see other questions at the moment, Philip, so maybe there'll be more at the end as people have the benefit of other presentations. But thank you so much for sharing your experiences at the lab and the tools that you use as well.
Thank you.
So we have talked about significantly yesterday and also today about the value of fact-checking in different ways. And so my next speaker is known to, I think, many of you who are at least Canadian, Kevin Newman, who's a prominent former Canadian journalist and broadcaster, who's also the co-founder of an organization called GetFact, which uses a combination of volunteers and AI to do systematic fact-checking. And we'd love to hear from you, Kevin, about your experiences and models.
Sure, thanks very much. And thanks for the invitation. So I've been a broadcaster. I can probably do this. I've been spending the week along with my co-founder knocking on doors of the city at probably the highest levels. From my years in journalism, I had some pretty good contacts that I pulled on. So I met this week with some of the senior advisors on defense, and there's PCO people who are deeply involved in that. One of the generals who runs one of the services of the Canadian Armed Forces, discussions with GAC, which is experimenting with AI. And in every one of those meetings, I asked them, because things are changing so quickly, give me an adjective. Like, where are we? And the word that I think stuck with me most was grim. There is actually a real understanding of things are changing very, very quickly, and that no one can predict which way it's going to go. And that was sort of part of our motivation for starting GetFact. It came out of Trump's 51st state, and we thought, well, get fact, Trump. We don't want to do this, but we also have to put some arms around the notion of hope. Because as much as we have probably lost a shared reality around truth, we are starting to lose a shared belief in actual facts, and that's where we are. And we're very defenseless. I mean, probably the most defenseless democracy on the planet right now. A couple of reasons for that. The population is being kept asleep. There is no update other than the work that was done during the election campaign. There's no update on the kind of misinformation attacks that are being monitored by CSE ever. There's no understanding in the Canadian population that hybrid war has been used against us for a decade now. The government, so far, we'll see that changes, is happy to keep us asleep and feeling safe. We're really not. The military is very skittish of this area. They don't want to, after the truckers' protest, nobody wants to touch government being involved in any way with facts, certainly not truth, but even facts makes them skittish as well. And they've dismantled a good part of what the military's capacity was in deciphering psyops and misinformation campaigns in other countries, and scattered them. And we are the only native country and Five Eyes country without a misinformation and disinformation plan. We have none. British have a gate of 5,000 people. And they have awareness campaigns. All the Nordic states have awareness campaigns. Much of Europe has awareness campaigns. It's being done by organizations, but it's not being done by government. So we're asleep. We're defenseless. And I'm not sure that we're too late, frankly. Because I don't know if your social feeds you've been watching what's happening with AI and the ramp up of AI material that is starting to show up. As soon as you touch one, of course, the algorithm tells it that, you like this stuff. So you're going to get more and more and more and more of it. So there was a great piece in the Free Press. I don't know if you saw it about a week ago, but it said we've been living in like two realities now for about 10 years. With AI learning about us and our consumption patterns, eating the algorithms that will then create a much more tailored reality for each person, because it's going to know all our passions, because we've been chatting to ChatGPT and telling it the stuff we like. That there was a prediction that we have basically 1 year before there is no shared reality. And it's not two, it's shattered into millions. So that's why I worry that we're a little bit late. But maybe we have a year. So what GetFact was created to do was to take people who already know how to fact check and try to transfer that decades worth of knowledge into an AI bot. And so it's not just journalists, it's creative Canadians, it's military intelligence officers, it's entrepreneurs. And what we decided was we were going to try to build an information firewall. Right now, this stuff really isn't being stopped at all. It's being studied by many of the people in the room. It's being noted, but it's not being stopped. And it's about to get 1,000 times worse. So if we could figure out a system and try it that might actually create some sort of defense against that, we thought we'd try it. Because as you know, it's the #1 threat to Canada. Information manipulation, foreign or domestic, poses the single biggest risk to our democracy. This is the thing that kills me. Everybody agrees it's the #1 threat to Canada, and we're not doing anything. It's the #1 threat to the economy. Misinformation and disinformation are the #1 short-term global risks, ahead of war and climate change. It's the World Economic Forum last year. And it's the #1 threat to leadership. I just talked about fractured realities over time. How are we going to get anything done? We're having a hard enough time getting things done with two distinct realities. 56% of Canadians now believe conspiracies contain an element of truth. COVID did that to us. That was down about 12% 10 years ago. Now more than half of us are willing to entertain conspiracies. And we're starting to get an idea of what this is costing businesses, because of course, businesses were the last to jump onto cybersecurity firewalls because they thought it was an extra expense, wasn't needed, until they got the ransomware call, and they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars after the fact. So what we're trying to do is convince them that misinformation is a threat to your business. They don't see it yet. Fake news triggers an estimated $39 billion in stock market losses and a total of $78 billion in global economic damage annually. 80% of CMOs and CCOs at large companies say AI-driven misinformation could harm their businesses. So there's awareness. Nobody knows what to do about it. And even here in Canada, KPMG did its first study and said top external schemes include misinformation and disinformation campaigns. It cost nearly 9 in 10 Canadian companies up to 5% of their profits in the past 9 months. So we are trying to evangelize that this isn't just something for academics to bring their hands over. This isn't just something for the government to act on. This is costing us money now. Because this is a language that they speak, right? So this is what we did. As I said, we created this fusion of forces. We took journalists who had run newsrooms and were retired across the country, print journalists, international journalists, war correspondents. The interesting thing is we've all operated in autocratic societies. So we understand how they feel and what they look like. And America is, without a doubt, on its way. I mean, even as a journalist now, we have to apply for a visa to report from the United States. That visa only lasts 90 days. They're not interested in having Washington bureaus in. We took exceptional Canadians, some of whom I'll tell you about in a moment, and military intelligence officers, because the truth is military intelligence at the highest level does exactly the same process as journalism. It goes out and assesses a source, assesses the validity of the source, then finds 3 ways to validate it, and then sends it up the line. And then we thought AI presented this once in a moment opportunity. There is nothing that's going to fight the volume of AI created misinformation than another AI, right? Journalists take 2 or 3 days to spot it. That's too late. It's already got its hooks into people's brains. The reports and the studies, and they're all important, but they're not going to stop it. Some of the learning stuff, there is a younger generation that is much more aware of manipulation. So some of the media literacy work is important, but there's still going to be no counter narrative to stop it. So we created, we gave it the name Laura for Laura Secord, who was the warrior of the War of 1812 and who took information that was vital to the Americans, gave it to the British, and helped save Canada. what she did, seriously, barefoot, walked through the forest for a day and a half, got lost, was found by a First Nations group who was allied with the British, took her in, and she had all the strategic information. The Brits had no idea how many Americans were waiting. She told them there were 8,000. So that gave the Brits time to get their allies in the First Nations to build up a much more substantial fighting force, and they ended up winning. So we are in the process of creating a LoRa News Shield. We hope to be able to create a fact shield. The News Shield is out now, and it's all of this, by the way, by volunteers for free for the last 9 months. Our budget remains here, and you're right, there's no money. I've been shaking the trees, and it's really hard to find, but we're hopeful. So the News Shield is out there. I'll explain how it works in a minute, and the Fact Shield is something, if we get money, we'd like to do. So what LoRa's approach to AI does that is different from ChatGPT's fact checking. ChatGPT scrapes the web and looks for information. Now, we all know that the web is getting more and more polluted by malign actors that are flooding it to make ChatGPT dumber or to reflect the thoughts of autocratic governments. So if you look, NewsGuard in the United States, and the other thing that's happening is ChatGPT is getting more certain itself. So a year ago, about 35% fact checking would return something that said, I don't have enough information. That number is 0 now. It comes up with an answer by scraping the web. 40% of that scraping happens on Reddit because a lot of the news sites are now blocked and they can't scrape them. So they're building their fact checking ability off of Reddit conversations and scraping the entire web. What we've done is we've put prompts into LoRa that says, we don't want you to do that. We want you to know what the ethical guidelines are that journalists, military intelligence officers, academics, scientific journals use for verification. That's usually 3 sources, peer review. Someone else has seen the same thing and studied it and thought, yeah, that's right. And then we don't want you to scrape the web for verification. We want you to scrape things that we know are verified information. So that's newspapers that we know, valuable television services, scientific journals, that kind of thing. And we want you to just make that assessment on that guideline. So we're hoping that that's enough of a protection that as ChatGPT and Grok and the rest of them get dumber at fact checking, we might be a little bit protected. Right now, the only thing you can do with LoRa is, you don't need to see that. That's good. Is URLs. If we had a little money, we would start doing YouTube, TikTok, all that other stuff where it's germinating. But we've proven that our AI can extract claims from media, can verify it with at least 3 sources, and can now make an initial assessment on bias and the quality of the reporting. Because we believe that nothing anyone can do at the academic level, the government level, the military level will work. What we have to do is we have to put the power of fact checking into the hands of people. So we have to make it possible, because right now you've heard it around, like, I don't know where to look. I don't know who you trust. If it's on your phone and you can ask it and you trust our process, then maybe that's a misinformation firewall. It's not a wall like Trump builds in the South. It's making every Canadian have the possibility of finding a place for an assessment of fact. That's what it kind of looks like right now. In this version, you cut and paste at the top, put the link in there. We note that she has things to learn. It has things to learn, and it will get better with help and feedback. And then we also posted previous articles where we've done some of the analysis. What our analysis looks like is we do a summary, some key takeaways, and then we break it down into 3 areas. The verification process. This particular article was took out 8 claims for that story. It verified 6 of them. 1 was mostly verified, and 1 was unverified. So we're not talking about truth. We're not trying to say left or right. We're just like laser focused on facts. Quick assessment of the bias. And it passes judgment on it. We thought about creating a rating here, but nobody could look beyond the rating. They just got bogged down in the rating. So, you know, in this case, the narrative includes historical context about past National Guard deployments. Overall, the article frames the issue through a lens that highlights conflict between federal intervention advocates and local officials and residents wary of military response. And then we make an assessment of reporting quality, generally accurate and well-sourced, water transparency about data sources and limitations. What we're really doing is teaching media literacy here, giving people a tool to be able to take a look at it. This is what we show people who distrust AI, and there's a growing number of them, of course, about why ours might be a little bit better. One of the more interesting things is if a machine libels somebody, there's no case law yet to know how that will be settled. It's possible that in the United States, machines could get human rights in the same way that property has. In the United States, we don't have that, but it's a bit of a Wild West. And these are the extraordinary Canadians who have helped us build. Jody Thomas at the top was a former national security advisor to the Prime Minister. Wendy Freeman beside her, the former president of CTV News. We've got other AI entrepreneurs working with us. Three of the guys there are JTF2. And the guy at the bottom right is probably Canada's least known but most successful producer. His name's Bob Ezrin. He got so pissed off at Trump, he moved back a year ago. And he's produced, you know, Aerosmith, Kiss, Bono, and just a cool guy to have. Like, only in some of our conversations have I ever heard anybody say, I think Bono would love this, I'll mention it to him. So that's it. We've announced GetFact.ca. Try it, please do. There's a feedback mechanism. We are in the process of trying to raise money in the most difficult period ever for raising money because of the uncertainty of the Trump tariffs. People are sitting on their cash. VCs have largely vanished. They're distrustful of AI. AI entrepreneurship is about a year old, and so nobody's got a lot of experience in it. But as I said, we got a year if we don't try. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I don't have your broadcaster voice, so I'll rely on the mic a little bit more. There's a provocative presentation, interesting in terms of how GetFact has evolved, certainly since the last time that we have engaged. I'm sure there are questions from the floor. Yes, Carol.
Oh, sorry. So I'm curious about how to get this to Canadians, because say the tool works well, easy to use, but the very people who believe in conspiracies will see this as a filter that like a third party that filters their information for them. You know, they don't see that it's already filtered by algorithms that are controlled by the tech bros. But so how do you get Canadian to use this?
So, I mean, once it's ready for prime time, it's clunky. The user experience is great, but it's free. Like, everyone's worked their butts off for no money. We decided at the beginning that we were not going to worry about sort of 10 to 15% on each fringe. They are beyond this argument. But there's 70 to 80% in the middle who still have subbed out, but have no way to prove it. They have no way to solve the problem of the crazy uncle at Thanksgiving who says this. And our dream is like, there's someone else around the table that says, well, GetFact, go look at it. And so, I mean, once it's there, that's what we're asking for help from, is distribution. But as you know, the way the government's organized, new stuff has nowhere to go. So you have to find some sort of alliance with people that they recognize, like the digital lab here, like Media Smarts. We've been working and building alliances with Mila in Quebec as well, just because that's what government understands. But what I've been doing this week is tapping my considerable network, actually, and just saying, you know, A, we can't wait 5 years, right? And B, you don't have to. and we'll see what happens. We need a partner to distribute it, right?
A question back here.
So most of the research I've read about various AI developers saying this is the tool that's going to keep up with all the other AI tools. The assessments have generally boiled down to it's good up to a point, but you still need some human oversight. So I'm curious as to where that fits into Laura.
So the human oversight is in how we ask Laura to make the decisions. We've used my 40 years of doing exactly this kind of work, verifying facts. I would be thrown into a country that had an autocratic government. I had to verify the facts, even though the authorities weren't pleased with me. And so that's one. But the other one, and this is a really important question because we do need humans in the loop. And we made a decision that Laura was not going to say it's safe to share or it's okay to share or 4 rotten tomatoes or 3 rotten tomatoes, because we want people to do the work. And that they ultimately, at the end of the day, are the ones who choose to share and take that advice. So, I mean, the hardest thing is nobody wants to read. Nobody wants to be bothered with fact checking. This is a tall order. There's too much information for them to do. But I think there's a lot of very fearful parents in the country that would like to be able to show their kids, well, this is some of the considerations you have to do when you have mis and disinformation. What are the contexts? What are the types of context? What are the types of biases? It's not just left-right, just confirmation biases. So there's an opportunity to educate and retain the power of believing that gray exists in a black and white world.
I'm going to just pose one short question and then invite Chris Beall to come forward to talk about another application. But as someone who served in the intelligence community, and now I serve in information integrity, I'm very captivated by the question of bias. Because on the one hand, in our business and information integrity, we're saying that, when we're looking at information distortion, we look at the facts, we don't look at opinions. Opinions is democracy, it's the underlying facts. But when you get into bias, it's kind of there's a gray zone there. When you're getting to cherry picking data, or you're looking at, what do you include in a frame and what you don't, you're starting to get into that opinion space. So I'm just wondering if you could just, in a short answer, just say how do you approach that question about making sure that you're not getting into, fact checking people's arguments.
So very carefully and dipping our toe. So we're not saying this is bias. The language that we programmed to say is it's incomplete. There are other opinions such as these. We're trying to keep the human brain engaged in the weighting of a lot of this stuff and not just saying it's a 7, So originally the first version, as you know, was just clearly fact verifying. But the art of mis and disinformation is in embedding the thing that nobody knows they're receiving around a lot of verified facts. So we felt if we weren't at least learning how to assess bias in this process, then we weren't identifying the sour apple in an otherwise appears to be a fine report.
Thank you very much for the explanation and for taking us through GetFact.
That's very much.
So Chris Beall is one of those people who wears many hats. We've worked alongside for some time now. In this hat, for this performance, he's the Canadian representative for an interesting methodology called DISARM. DISARM was one of the brainchilds of Chris Miller, who we actually had a chance to engage earlier. That it's a methodological approach and it forms responses on how to look at influence operations, particularly foreign influence operations. So Chris, we're in your good hands.
Amazing. I'm okay without a mic as long as people can hear me. I'll just have a mic just in case. I don't have a broadcasting background, but I did 2 years in vocal performance. I thought I was going to be a singer, so I can try and bring some of that to the fore now. I have to apologize before I start, and it's not one of these apologies where I'm going to use it as an excuse, but I tend to talk too quickly, especially when I'm excited. I'll try my best to slow down and keep it. But if I look at you looking dazed, I'll know it's just time to ratchet it back a bit. But it is quite an exciting piece of work. I'm really excited to be here today. I just want to applaud the organizers. I'm sure many of you in the room have the same experience as me, where you go to a lot of meetings. And a lot of the times in meetings, I'm sitting with all the same people, talking about many of the same things. And I think as we've been talking about the last couple of days, you realize the extent of the crisis, but also that it's getting worse. And something I felt a lot in these kind of things is like, why are we still talking about this and not doing things? And I've been really heartened by the last 24 hours, 36 hours of the ideas coming there, but also just the diversity of people in the room and the diversity of ideas coming out. And I found already at dinner last night, I was talking to people about concrete things we're going to do coming out of the meetings we had at this session, which is great to see. Sweep. Oh, sweep. There we go. Thank you. Tapping, not sweeping. So thanks very much to Charlotte and Camille this morning for setting the stage so well, because in fact, I can skip over my first few slides and John's just here, did the same information, the extent to which disinformation is a risk affecting us all. And in fact, here's a quote from the Secretary General that I often use, although to my point a moment ago, and I think something we need to keep in mind in this space. I use this quote in a bit of a parlor game with friends working in the space. So this is a quote on the launch of the principles on information integrity. But I asked people when this was from. And I've had people come back to 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, because this isn't substantially different from anywhere we've been all along. That is a recognition that mis and disinformation and hate speech are fueling prejudice and driving really negative outcomes through the information space that are affecting us all. And as we've talked about this weekend on climate. What I want to get to is this question about what DISARM is. And maybe before I do, something we've been talking about this weekend, I want to sort of put my own biases on the table to start. I find conversations around mis and disinformation a little less helpful than other aspects of the challenge. That is, disinformation is certainly a challenge. We've seen how it plays out, but it's very much a symptom of a larger problem. And the problem that DISARM is oriented to tackle is around influence operations, especially clandestine influence operations, and the role that actors are playing, taking advantage of the systems and availability and the pieces that are there to target different communities of interest through the sort of way they run an influence operation, the way they manage and maintain this. There's some benefits to shifting from disinformation to that. First of all, it's issue agnostic. So it's not about what they're talking about, it's how they're doing the talking, how they're doing the structure. It's to some extent actor agnostic. So a lot of the work that's done on influence operations is through what the EU has termed as FIMI, foreign information manipulation and interference, focus on foreign state actors, but it doesn't have to be. So what we've been talking about the last couple of days, it's also oil and gas companies. It's the actors that are exacerbating and using these systems to target people. The benefits, and I'm just going to quote my colleague Carl, who you heard from earlier today, because it's one of my favorite quotes of his on this issue, and I can't now open my phone, but I'll just take 1 second. May not take 1 second. So Carl has said on this, because he has a brilliant paper. In fact, we ran an exercise here with DISARM and Derail on this earlier this year. And he says, defining the problem as influence operations leads us to focus on the actual people, infrastructure, organizations, and money that make up that operation. So rather than trying to target individual pieces of information through disinformation or playing this sort of whack-a-mole of making things right or wrong, we actually can then go at the people who are doing things. So where DISARM starts and where it sort of came out of is some learning from some cybersecurity experiences, some ideas. What it basically is recognizing that there's a real challenge around coordination. And Jennifer, you talked about this yesterday. David Scales, who unfortunately had to leave, he talked about this yesterday as well. There's some real issues around terminology and taxonomy. Because we use different words to talk about the same things. I have another slide that I've used in a bunch of presentations that's, different words meaning the same things and the same word meaning very different things. And it's led us down this real problem where sometimes at 30,000 feet, we all kind of agree with what we're doing. When we really get into it, we're actually doing and tracking and talking about different things, which means when we're planning a response, it's not an integrated response. It's a discoordinated, jumbled response across policy areas, across geographies, across operational organizations. So where DISARM started with is, if we're going to have a whole society response, if we're actually going to coordinate these kind of efforts, we need to have a whole society vocabulary. We need to have a language to talk about this. And I'll give a really concrete example from the Canadian system that some of you may know. Information integrity has justifiably become an important word and way for Canada to think about this. Canada, along with the Netherlands, led at the UN a declaration on principles on information integrity. Canada's contributed to this. I worked on them. They ran a working group with Latvia and the Alliance for Security and Democracy on information integrity at the Summit for Democracy. I led the taxonomy working group. The problem is the use of that comes out of cybersecurity as well. And they use the definition of integrity, meaning whole and complete. It's from the sort of secondary definition that's used by political science, like the integrity of a nation state. Canada also has a banking regulator, OSFI. OSFI, recognizing this as an issue, said, integrity, this is a really important issue for banking. We will have a regulation requirement around integrity, except they use a different definition. So they use the traditional definition of integrity, meaning moral and upstanding. And now you may say, well, what's the difference? The problem is when you're starting looking at banking regulation, it actually makes a difference how a government is defining things different ways. It's not gone before the courts. It's not presenting some, but it's just really, really matters to start to boil down by what exactly we mean when we're talking about words. And so this is the idea behind DISARM. What DISARM has done is it's created a common language for us all to use to talk about what we're seeing when we're observing influence operations. When analysts are working in a space and they're tracking things going on, so you have 10 analysts in 10 places and they're not reporting 10 different things. They're reporting one thing. And they're seeing it allows us to then draw out and say, well, what are these things doing? How are they interacting? How are they working together? So this is this point. Without it, we're sort of, there's a real issue on interoperability. We all want to work together. We want to coordinate. And I think this is especially important for communities like yours, where people working on climate change, misinformation, disinformation, want to learn from people who help, like we did yesterday, or want to learn there's a huge impact of gender-based disinformation. But we want to make sure we're all using the same terminology, understand the same systems and how they work together. Sorry. So what is DISARM? DISARM is spelled out here. It's open source. It's free to use. It presents it relies on something called tactics, techniques, and procedures, but it's basically boiling down exactly what an adversary is doing in an operation. And it presents sort of a codification. So you can say, I'm seeing these things when you're reporting on it, and then you report into it. Really useful part of it is it then feeds into something that's developed for cybersecurity, but an interoperable data standard, so that it actually goes into something where that is like machine readable and transmittable, and so we can have like near real time connection of sharing of information across people who use the system. DISARM, and I should have clarified. I'm speaking specifically about what we call a red framework. So you remember this morning we talked about red, blue, and that idea of adversaries versus the positive side. This part of DISARM is very focused on tracking what adversaries are doing. There is a DISARM Blue. It's pretty problematic, partly because it was meant to be a descriptor and it's instead picked up by some people as being, this is what we should do. But it contains some things that authoritarian regimes do, like some of the response pieces. I'm not running out of time, am I? Okay. Just tracking it.
Be subtle.
So who you did? Those around the world. What I want to just finish with, what I want to get to is, so DISARM is this way of capturing what we're doing, tracking it, codifying it, enabling it to be shared. However, it's problematic because it's huge, it's cumbersome. There's real reporting challenges. Like people who know how to use it love it. I've had people stop me and say, like, this is the best thing ever. A lot of people say, I tried this and I don't get through it. So we got some money from NATO to really listen to our user needs and try and make it better. Launching DISARM 2.0 within the year. It's now in beta testing. Happy to share it out with anyone. Happy to talk this through. This will include like playbooks. So it starts to group these things together and say, if you're seeing these 15 indicators, you probably are seeing this kind of operation, and here's how we should think about it, and here's how we should work together on it. If it takes the things that are really machine readable, like the things that are just basic, like the website, those things go into machine learning, so they don't require a person. And it's also updating our website and our usability, really try and make this something that people can actually gain from and figure out how to use, so that we can really focus our analyst time and our time on where are the things we really need to infer what's going on, and how do we understand the situation.
So much, Chris. It brings forth that, those of us who assess information distortion we often do that through either looking at the narrative and the risk of the narrative, look at the facts, but this other way is looking at the techniques, tactics, and procedures so that you can understand how that information is being manipulated and how you can actually also go after the perpetrators. And they're all different parts of a toolbox. And I think one of the benefits of this part of the toolbox is that common language. Like if we're as Canada looking to do more collaboration transatlantically with Europe on foreign influence campaigns, for example, to have that common language about how threats are identified and how that informs mitigation playbooks becomes extremely valuable. Not to add a commercial announcement to your wonderful presentation, but are there questions or comments for Chris?
Yeah, I was interested in how the Canadian government responded. You had to go to NATO to get help with it.
I should have explained. It was initially launched in the US out of MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is a US NGO. It now exists in the UK. The biggest part of our connection is through the European External Action Service, right, and NATO, and then the G7 Rapid Response Mechanism. So the part of Canadian government that works, they're supportive. They use it as part of their structure, but
they keep the information themselves.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge, right? This should be a tool that enables better information sharing, working across some partners. We do so. Visionum, which is you may know is the French organization that does French government organization that deals with counter disinformation. They use it and they also promote it, and then they also share it out. They use it as a tool. In fact, the real problem, the reason that I joined the organization, probably more than any other, is to your point. It's a tech tool built by tech people to support tech things. Like that sounds very simplistic, but they have a huge community of users. There are 1,000 people who receive training just from the standard trainer, and they do train the trainer. So they've trained more people. We have 150 organizations that use it regularly. We don't have a community because that wasn't the priority. And so what I've come is actually to create a community practice. We do some training, but actually what we're working on is how do we work on advanced training? Actually get people, we ran a tabletop here with all of you, like really, Jennifer managed to get together an incredible group of people. We're looking at those kinds of experiences elsewhere to really try and build out the user community, create a place where people can feel connected and safe. Sorry, I hope I answered you.
We're doing a repeat workshop at the end of November, the 26th and the 27th of November. We're going to be doing a foreign influence conference in collaboration with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation and the EU Action Service, which includes one day to understand foreign influence operations and campaigns and information, and a second half-day workshop with Carl and Chris, where we'll actually game this out. We'll actually do demonstrations. So if you are interested, let us know, and we'll make sure that you're included in that. And I would just say that two of the big targets for information, these types of influence operations, definitely democracy, and as we talked about this morning, big link between democracy and climate change. Oui, Camille? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you just go first.
I'm very interested in the terminology issue. As you said, there's a difference between the banks and the newspapers, and Canadian government has a science and integrity policy and so on. Now you're working with different countries. The words are different, the cultures are different. How do you figure out a common terminology unless everybody wants to use English at the same time? It's a very tricky thing. I'm involved in a translation, and even Quebec and France don't agree with that.
Let's speak to you further about it. It is a challenge at this point. It is English. Visionum in France did a translation. We've been talking to other partners. We just did some training with Côte d'Ivoire. They were with some organizations we work with there. They were running elections. It's a real. I don't want to sound like we're not acting. We're aware. One of the biggest challenges we've had so far is, like everyone else, and this sounds for anybody in civil society, this is universal. It's just money, right? And so if we had more investment, we'd put what we've been really working on is the tech stack and fixing the sort of technical requirements. One of the ways we've worked around it is not in each iteration. What we try and do is it's user driven. So it's not It's not like people sitting in an ivory tower saying, here's the word we should use. It's an open source, and it's open source by inclusion as well, that there are structures. And in fact, something we're really working on is how do users get to change it more? So people can say, you have this term, we have no idea what you mean. In fact, one of the funny things Carl did in a previous conversation is he was able to have this, like, I don't know what this means. Like, really, nobody using this. It's just kind of there. So we've cut those out. And we have other ones where there's one we talked about the people purchasing a website. And it used to be one TTP that related to this overall thing. But now a little bit to your point where it's unclear what exactly is meant. It's now three. It's the person purchasing the website, it's the person who owns the website, it's the person who uses the website as three separate things, recognizing that in some cases it might actually be a different character. But I'd love to chat more about it, because I think the translation part, and this came up with, especially we do a lot of work with colleagues in the global majority, and it's patently colonialist to be saying you have to learn English, the level of sophistication to be able to use the tools that are available. And I'd like to figure out a way through. Thank you.
Camille?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Chris, for the presentation. A quick question. You mentioned France a couple of times, but when we launched, when Brazil, the UN, UNESCO launched the Global Initiative for Information Integrity on climate change, one of the ideas that was floating around is a rapid response mechanism to answer climate disinformation, for example. So I'm just wondering if this framework that you built that is more targeted at FIMI could also be used for any kind of other specific disinformation that we see out there.
Fantastic question. Thank you very much. Part of the design was specifically to do that. So part of the way it's designed, because it's not focused on a particular actor, and it's not focused on a particular issue, because it's not focused on a particular actor or a particular issue, it's our goal that it enables sort of to capture the range of influence operations. So we've done some playbooks already that meet some of these areas. We've got a gender disinformation playbook drafted up that includes things like the lack of response from tech companies when a complaint is made, like as one of the indicators. It sort of has some of these pieces in it. We've done a lot of work around hate and hate crime, recognizing that somebody this morning talked about intersectionality and yesterday as well. And I think that's really key to our thinking as well, is that we have a set of adversaries that cut across these spaces, that are working in anti-vax, that are working in climate change, that are working in gender, that are and where we've fallen down is we've put ourselves into silos. And so the structure is designed to try and cut across those. I'm not saying it does it perfect. Like, I'd love to do more. In fact, one of the reasons that I'm excited to be here this weekend and some of the conversations I've already had, and please do approach me or get in touch afterward, is to think about how we can up our climate game. Are there things that are missing that should be in there that are specific to climate disinformation that aren't captured in our sort of overall picture? And almost certainly the answer is yes. It's just we need to build some in. So either through Vision, through our partners in France, or our partners in Europe, or just through us, we'd love to partner and help out however we can. Thank you.
Well, please join me in thanking Chris for a wonderful presentation. So those of you who attended this special event last night will have seen the presentation from CRIM on a data portal on climate change. And Xavier Frenette is here just to do a quick walkthrough on this and find out if there's any additional questions or requests for clarification. So Xavier, we're in your good hands. I'll give you the microphone.
Thank you very much. I have my text on my phone, so I'll make sure to respect the time. So sorry, you'll excuse me if I read on my phone. I'm here to present climatedata.ca website, or in French, donnesclimatiques.ca. Yesterday we did a little bit of a quick overview of the new website. We just launched a new version, so yesterday was kind of a kind of official launch event. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about the website and how it what's its role in this climate misinformation, disinformation as a tool. So we know that climate misinformation about climate, that it can be aggravated when access to high quality and reputable climate data is difficult, and this is especially true for non-experts. And this is the role of the climate data website. Just a few quick information. It's a bilingual website, fully bilingual website. It was created in 2018. We just released a new version this week. It has about 20,000 visitors per month. It's going. We have more and more visitors every month, and it's a project that was undertaken with the support of Environment Climate Change Canada and different partners, technical and also scientific partners. So just a little bit of a context. So we know that all sectors of society and the economy are at risk from climate changes. So it's therefore vital for Canadians, but more specifically for what we call practitioners like consulting firms, engineers, physicians, architects, and also decision makers more working in government agency or businesses or energy provider to incorporate climate change considerations into their decision-making processes. Decision makers are generally not experts. And even for experts, tasks like accessing large amount of reliable data can be difficult. And sometimes if you want to conduct a thorough analysis or compute key variables for a specific region, it can take months or even cost several thousands of dollars. So if quality and reputable climate data is hard to find, access, or interpret, non-experts looking for data may end up using poor quality data, which would lead which could lead to misleading narratives. So the website. Climate data is like kind of an answer to this issue. The mission here, climatedata.ca, provides high-quality climate data and resources to help Canadians make decisions in a changing climate. So I think that I found that this whole mission statement really encompasses everything that is the website. And I'll just go into a few keywords in this mission to give a global vision of the website. First, about the high quality data. So yeah, the website does provide high quality data. So people across Canada are increasingly relying on climate data to make important decisions about climate risks, adaptation, and resilience. So climate data and its partners create and share this climate data. Their goal is to make sure that the data sets are not only high quality, but also easy to access, clearly explained, trustworthy, and well documented. So in that objective, In that objective, all data goes through a thorough, careful review. So whether the data comes from federal, regional, provincial partners, or even private companies, it must meet strict quality standards. So before any data set is added to the website, it goes through a review process. Here is just a quick overview image. I won't go through the image, but it's on our website. It goes through this review process where all the partners involved must agree that it meets these standards. Also, the Canadian Centre for Climate Services, the CCSC, they define data standards, official data standards for every data that will have to come on the website. So those standards are aligned with broader national and international data standards, and they aim to develop and maintain accessible, transparent, trustworthy, and well-documented data sets. So in conclusion, about the quality of the data and the scientific integrity are important aspects to ensure confidence in the data and to give a better alternative to poor and misleading data. Now I'll just talk a little bit more technically about the data itself. Sorry. The website offers 44 climate variables in 7 different data sets. The variables, they cover temperature, precipitation data. You have here just a quick overview, but they also cover station data and also marine data. So for example, sea level change for coastal regions. This wide variety of variables allows different sectors of the Canadian economy, like the agriculture, health sector, building sector, and transportation, to make decisions regarding climate changes. The data set that are provided are available for historical and future projection. We see here, for example, we go all the way to the year 200 and 2100 for different climate scenarios. We have data for the whole region of Canada. So all the variables are available for every region in Canada. Here we have an example of a marine data that is available for every coastal region in Canada. For most variable, we have a grid. All data are for a grid of around 6 by 10 kilometers. For 4 different scenarios. We see here a comparison. It's not the best comparison, but we already show here comparison between 2 scenarios. It's an example of what you can have on the website. Also possible to see the data by aggregated by different regions. For example, this is an example about data aggregated by health regions, once again, throughout Canada. Also possible, users can visualize the data, but it's also possible to download the data. We have a multi-step download form that the user can use to really specify exactly the data that they want for their own. For example, different sectors can really download the data, customize the data that they need. Resources, we did talk a little bit about that yesterday. There's a whole section on the website about learning resources. We have examples here. And also we have a glossary about the terms. So really here the objective is to really give Canadians, decision makers, non-experts really access to learning material to better understand the different climate concepts, the different technical terms that are used, and to make sure that this information is there for people that really are looking for it. So in conclusion, I just want to highlight that it's an important tool in climate understanding and building resilience to climate change impacts. The website is not there to provide like plans, adaptation plans. It's there to provide data and learning material and resources to help build plans and to adapt to climate changes. Of course, I think this highlight is a good conclusion. It's an important tool fighting misinformation, disinformation. And new version, the new version just came out this week. Go check it out. Thank you very much.
So, merci beaucoup, Xavier, pour la présentation. I think it's great that this database is available to us. I mean, we've talked about the importance of fact checking. We need to have that high quality verified data to do that against. And as we learned also from Philip, that access to data becomes so important, and to have this kind of resource is extremely useful for those types of efforts. So in this session, we've talked about approaches to understanding data, including through some of the technologies that Philip took us through. We've talked about understanding the method of looking at tactics, techniques, and procedures and foreign influence operations, and how that also is adaptable to other forms of assessing mis and disinformation, including the climate change area. And we've heard from Kevin Newman about the importance of fact checking, including using AI-enabled resources responsibly. So this has been a great session. I urge you to continue the conversation in our break.